Good evening. My name is Thurman Greco, and the name of this program is Let's Live with Thurman Greco. And it's coming to you from Channel 23, Woodstock's own television station in Woodstock, New York. And I'm very, very excited because it's minus something or other, and there's snow on the ground. And look back here, we've got a palm tree and a beach, and we're very, very excited. And I am very excited about this guest because she is a very important person to the arts. And would you tell us about yourself and about the arts in Woodstock?
Yes, my name is Linda Diamond. I've been in Woodstock 22 years officially, but I used to perform with my dance company at the original Woodstock Playhouse before it burned down. So there's a lot of history in that era. And I'm also artistic director and founder of Linda Diamond and Company, and our theater, which is dedicated to dance and music events, is called the Woodstock Diamond Socolo Dance Theater. And that theater is actually under the blessing of the town of Woodstock, and we're very pleased that we can present events when the times permit. So that's part of what we do, and also I work with children's dance classes, which is a very exciting thing to do during this era when many children have to be homeschooled and are not able to go to regular school classes. So I really enjoy being here, and I believe this is a test.
Now, would you please tell, you're doing
We're
with
testing.
children. Oh, no, we're going.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me for interrupting everybody. Yes, I apologize.
No, you work with children, so you're working with a lot of these homeschool children.
I only have a few private students, actually, which is better for me. So it's not a whole group, but my intention is to reach out to the community because I have very special dance classes for ages 8 to ages 12, and I combine modern dance along with some ballet work, which I really enjoy as well. And I'm gearing this towards the serious dance student, meaning if your child, boy or girl, both are welcome, is interested in dance and the expression of the art through performing, I would like you to consider us. Our phone number is 845-679-7757. Last summer, we were able to present an outdoor event, which was so exciting in the month of June. And we were gifted by a donation of an outdoor tent and stage by two of our wonderful parents. And that made it possible for everyone to be outdoors without masks, and it was early June before this turn of the tides occurred, as we now have it. So our plan is to have other outdoor events in June, and the last one incorporated the two students who were absolutely wonderful, and I saw that my strict discipline with them really paid off because they were extremely professional in the way that they performed and also the way that they carried on very independently. It was just wonderful for me to see that, and I feel that, my mission right now at this time in my career, in addition to being a choreographer, of course, is to pass on the flame. And our younger generation really needs to be given the opportunities to have arts training, and especially my field in dance. I will be able to offer some scholarships to those who need it, and our prices are very reasonable. So I hope that you will tell your friends, because word of mouth in Woodstock is one of the best ways to get an ad going. Thank you. And what else?
Well, the thing that makes this project that you're working on now, you say that you're working with children, is the fact that we have this tradition of Woodstock being its only country. Woodstock is its own place.
I agree.
And it is a center of the arts and center of dance. So here you are working to bring up our future children that are living in the most difficult of times.
Definitely. Yes, exactly. Well, I wanted to say, I was thinking about that before we started our program. You and I were talking about the importance of letting our viewers know that Woodstock is officially called the Colony of the Arts. Please do not forget that, in spite of what's going on. And I would like to reach out to the newcomers as well as those who have been living here for many years and remind them about that, and also to say that it's very important to maintain the wonderful quality and character that Woodstock represents. And I'll tell you what some of those characteristics are. First of all, kindness, patience, courtesy, charity, and many artists have often had benefits for children who have had cancer or people who need money for their medical help. And it's just very heartwarming. I'm getting the chills even remembering some of the instances. And also that type of charity to each other in the way of kindness and courtesy. We hope that everybody will maintain that during these difficult times when I know that, you know, people are rushing around trying to knock each other over because they're under a lot of duress, and I certainly can understand that. But I've been thinking a lot about this fact that we do have to consider the Colony of the Arts and the wonderful characteristics that are present in our wonderful Woodstock, even though there's a lot of change happening and so on. But in addition to that, I wanted to also give my condolences to Michael Lang's family and to remind everyone that Michael Lang, who sadly departed just very recently, truly was the emblem of Woodstock, because he had created such a wonderful legacy that the image or the name of the Woodstock Festival is still known worldwide, even for people who weren't born then. And I remember in the early days when I was here, people at CVS or the supermarket would say, oh, some people just came in and they wanted to know where's the Woodstock Festival. And of course it wasn't still going on, but there are other festivals, as we know. There's the dance festival I have and the film festivals and so on. So just to let you know that we really have to honor wonderful Michael Lang and all the musicians who participated there and who had been part of this wonderful heritage, that he shall not be forgotten. And he is in history as it is already. So that, along with the idea of the Colony of the Arts being so important, are very important aspects that we want you to treasure as well. And as I said, I hope some of you have cable TV at home, because some of us who are television producers don't even have TV. I'm one of them, but I enjoy hearing what's going on, and especially Thurman's wonderful program is just delightful. And another person that I absolutely must honor is Ellen Poville, who is the unsung heroine of our public television station, the Woodstock Public TV, Access TV. And she has been such a pillar of strength. The way I originally met Ellen was by coincidence. I didn't meet her, but someone said, oh, you want to have a little promo on TV? Okay, so call up this lady, Ellen Poville. So Ellen asked me if I would like to have my own show, and I was only calling to have a little announcement. And that's how a wonderful friendship and artistic collaboration began and has gone on for over 2 decades. I've been in Woodstock officially 22 years, and not counting the other years at the Woodstock Playhouse performances. And I do want to thank her so much, because she has the patience of a saint, and I have often told her that she deserves the Congressional Medal of Honor, at least, if not a Purple Heart, for working with me. So with all that, I do want to say that she's done fantastic lighting and presentations, and her patience has just been remarkable for someone who's doing the job of at least 10 people in a regular professional or commercial, I should say, television station. So for all that, I want all you viewers to know who is the behind-the-scenes force in helping to keep these programs going, and especially for Thurman and Thurman Greco's wonderful program that she invited me to today.
Well, Ellen likes to stay behind the scenes, But we like to sneak up on her at the end, and,
Oh.
and we really do like to, so that she's even famous now on YouTube.
Oh.
These programs go out to YouTube.
Oh, they do find
And I think that is so, I think it's so important because we have so many new people now moving into Woodstock that many of them, because they were fleeing the city, I think they didn't really do as much research when they came to Woodstock, and now that they're here, they're learning what community has to offer.
and who the nuts and bolts are.
But
No
there's,
pun.
we have our traditions, and the children are suffering so much now, and it's wonderful. When are you going to start can you tell us a little bit more about your summer program?
Well, I'm starting actually in February. I have,
Wonderful, thank you.
I'm going to have, I believe it's, I have to count the days, I think it's February 10th on a Sunday. I believe it would be the second Sunday in February. I will be holding an audition class for children who are interested, and the parents may also remain to watch if they'd like. It'll be about a 40-minute class in order to see their level and also to see if they like it. Because I always feel that it's very important that a child enjoy where they're going when they're taken to a lesson, not against their will. I mean, the art forms are difficult enough. I had a brother years ago who was in Panama, and he was told he had to take piano, and he threatened the teacher to jump off the balcony, so that ended that. So we don't want children who are not really wanting to be there. We want to invite those, including boys, to try it out and consider starting right away, because I will be flexible in my schedule according to the parents who are involved. I try to do that, and I did that with my 2 homeschool children. If there was a storm, they had to change the time or whatever, and I had to be homebound myself. So it worked out actually to be able to be flexible. But I would like to welcome you, and my phone number is for classes is 845-679-7757. So if you know any children who are interested, please tell them to contact me.
So you're going to be having some auditions.
Yes.
And then after you have the auditions, you're going to be having classes.
Yes.
And then you're going to work with these students so that there will be a production in the summer.
Well, I would like to include the children in my professional dance company, which will be performing. And the dance company is Linda Diamond and Company. And we plan an outdoor event, hopefully in Woodstock and also in Kingston, which I don't want to speak about until I find out the particulars. But I enjoy bringing them into the professional world. That's why I mention the importance of serious students, meaning students who really are desiring to have class and maybe couldn't afford it, or there wasn't anything going on around here. So by having a child between the age of 8 and 12 step right in with the professional dance company is the best school of experience, I think, because they learn so much about the discipline that's needed, and the need to be quiet backstage and to help each other, and to feel very happy to be part of a group and see what the real world is like. It's not just about, we don't have a lot of tutus in our show, but we do have 1 or 2 pieces with the circus characters where they do that. But I have a fantastic array of costumes, and sometimes during the class I'll let them just grab something off the rack to enjoy that. And I think that's the delight of being a child, because I still have that delight myself. So for me, I'm just one of them when I experience what they enjoy. And I hope to bring the combination of the discipline with the fun. And speaking of that, I'm very old school, as they say, so I've been told, and I don't mind. I was trained by some of the most well-known people in the modern dance and ballet division in New York City. And now, years later, I realize how much they gave us, because we didn't realize it at the time, but their strict requirements really paid off. When I see my dancers in a rehearsal, and if I start talking about something, they know that they cannot also engage in the conversation, or we wouldn't have time to rehearse. It's not that I don't mind let them have a question or so, but I realize that the classroom experience for the professional dancer and the non-professional really has a carryover into real life situations. So there's a lot of benefit that comes from it. Even if a child doesn't want to become a dancer, they will gain certain skills, and of course it'll help their posture and their way of interacting with each other. And I think it has a lot of additional benefits that don't always meet the eye, but years later it comes back to you, and it comes back to me about many of my wonderful teachers. And by the way, I'm working on a memoir called The Dented Swan. I don't want to give away too much about it, but basically it has to do with the fact that we all have flaws, especially in dance, but they have to be covered up. Nobody should know. And it occurred to me that I wasn't the only one with a broken elbow at the ballet class, wrapped up in my self-made thing. But the teachers don't even look at you, if there's something wrong. I mean, you could have a cast around your head. If you show up in ballet class, fine. They'll just be looking at your feet. I mean, they will act as if nothing is wrong. That's part of the decorum. And it's kind of funny when I think back to it, but I realize that's the way the teachers were trained, and especially, from the ballet world. So that's where the concept of the dented swan is from, because dancers, regardless of whether they're in ballet or modern, especially there are many other forms of dance, of course, they have to not reveal to the teacher or the choreographer that they have something wrong with them, otherwise they might get fired. So that's another part of it. But the most extreme example I want to mention is years ago I had a performance at the Birdcliff Theater, and I had auditioned a few dancers, and one young lady who was auditioned privately, which I usually like to do, at the end of her audition with me for 20 minutes or a half hour, she revealed to me that she had a prosthetic foot. I couldn't believe it because I didn't even notice it, and she moved so well, and I hired her. And I'll always remember that wonderful dancer, her dedication, and the fact that she didn't want to tell me in advance, because partly she didn't want me to be looking at her foot, and also maybe cancel her out. So to me, that's the sign, the true sign of valor, of the highest degree, of somebody with a disability. And of course there are many other people with different things. And that's an interesting point now. Nowadays there's a lot happening with featuring and honoring people with disabilities and different ages, especially in the modern dance field. It's become quite interesting to see how there are grants for people, to continue. Some are in wheelchairs and so on, and it really brings out to the public the awareness that anyone can dance if they really want to. And of course, it's a very primal expression in any country. And that's why dance is so universal for me, because you don't really have to know the language of the country to be able to reach out through the expression. And years back, when there was a touring program with the National Endowment for the Arts, it was really, in a way, sending Americans as ambassadors. Of course, today, it's a little difficult with all the different political things going on, and that makes it a little bit harder and more challenging. But the concept of using the arts as a vehicle for better understanding is something that I very much cherish and believe in. So that is why it's so important also for children as well as young adults to engage in some kind of dance activity. And my choreography often involves multicultural themes. Because I grew up in Panama, where my parents were journalists and I was born and raised there, and those influences of the music and the art and the culture have always stayed with me, and they creep in without my knowing that they're part of it. And I also reach out to other styles from Peru, and the music of the Andes has been very interesting to me, and I studied a little about the culture of the Incas, which is fascinating. And so all of those types of influences and aspects of how modern dance can combine with other cultures is something important to share with the children as well. But additionally, the visual arts are something that are so important for me in dance too, because I've been influenced by various different artists, including Alexander Calder, and Picasso. I have some works based on his art, and so on. And that also brings up the importance of the child's education in the arts should be over many different styles, not just one. But when they can encompass that in dance, then they start to see things in a new way. And of course, children have their own imagination. I mean, when I let them do their improvisation at the end of a class, they are coming up with movement that I could never come up with. And so I enjoy giving them the discipline of the class, but then they have about 20 minutes to make up their own dance. And it's usually to a piece of music, and if they want to grab a prop, I let them pick out whatever they want, either a scarf or one little girl liked the fake swords, so she had a lot of sword dances. And they just pick out something. So I combine the importance of the discipline of the art, because you really have to know the tools of the trade, and then they have the freedom of expression. But speaking of the tools of the trade, I often tell people, say, you know, a sculptor teaching a class wouldn't say, okay, just take this here, start fooling around. You know, no, they would hurt themselves. The same thing with dance, because sometimes a child comes in, they want to start right away doing a somersault or a cartwheel. No, I tell them. Why? Because even the Olympic gymnasts have to warm up a certain way before they even undertake some of those challenging movements. And that's part of what discipline is about. It's training of the individual to know what the hazards might be and what the important things are, to warm up the body, the fingers, if it's piano, whatever, so that they can then have freedom, because there's no such thing as absolute freedom. I used to tell my students in schools where I work, but it's an interesting concept. So I may be a little bit old-fashioned, but I see that it really works for the product that I was able to enjoy seeing 2 of my private students last June. It was something that I'd never been able to experience, because I usually worked with large groups, and often people were throwing things at me, or you know, whatever. It was the New York Department of Ed. May it long live. But working privately and then seeing the results of this discipline and this love for the art and very precise consideration of everything really was remarkable. And so I want to be able to instill and encourage more of that.
You know, you've also said something that has been very, very important to me, that goes beyond, if you can go beyond dance. I think dance is such a part of our lives without even realizing it. But children move. And sometimes I think that our modern schools do not move the children enough. And you know, that carries on all through adulthood, and it carries on through the senior years too. Because if a child is not taught to move, by the time they're in their 50s and 60s, the body begins to deteriorate in a way that it would not if they had been properly trained. And there's just a lot of people that don't get that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good concept to fast forward into other age ranges. And there's also, they've done a lot of studies about how the brain is more flexible in children who take piano after school, or you know, dance or art, that evidently it actually scientifically has been proven that it transforms the plasticity of the brain, so that it's not only helpful for you know, problem solving, which we always talk about, but also learning new ways to do things gives somebody less of a judgmental outlook. And I found that, okay, once in a while I have dancers who say, oh, I don't want to wear that. But the dancers I work with, sometimes I throw something on them and I put another skirt on top of the other thing, and then I take a bandana and I wrap it around their neck, and they just stand there like a Barbie doll until I get them ready. And the good ones, you know, they're the ones who are used to me. And then when they start moving in it, they're amazed, because suddenly it flares out and you see a pink skirt, you know, type of folk skirt under a black dress, and then and somehow everything comes alive. It's so fascinating for me because it's like sculpture. But what I wanted to get back to is the fact that this plasticity of the brain and the openness to not be judgmental about, well, this doesn't go with that or whatever. One of my little students was going to wear a Celtic thing. She said, well, this isn't very Celtic. I said, look, let's just drop all our anticipation of what goes with what. In modern dance, we can take liberties. That's the wonderful thing about the field. And of course, we can go beyond what maybe was the authentic skirt or whatever, but we can give a little flair, just like a painter or an artist might be doing a quick drawing. I used to model at FIT and School of Visual Arts as well as Parsons, and they always enjoyed having dancers, and they would tell us what to bring. But what I enjoyed was the way the artist would suddenly shift something. I was wearing a dance jumpsuit, and then someone drew like a wind-up toy thing on my back, which was so fascinating because I thought that was really clever. So they were using their imagination to transform what they were seeing in front of them. And so that's all part and parcel of the performing arts, the visual arts, music as well. That ability to not come in with a set standard, we only do it this way. Now, in France, I lived in Paris where I started my career, that was a different story. But now they've loosened up a little. It took them a few decades. But in those days, it was also, they were very, oh, you can't do this, you can't wear this, or this leotard. Moi, je suis petite. When I was going to lend a short little girl a turquoise leotard, and I said, they all thought of me as a giant because I was very tall for them. And so I said, but it's a size small, it stretches in two directions, And so they were right away, oh, I'm too petite for you, this is too large. The choreographers would give me these ultra large size leotards. At that time I was thinner. And I said, oh, but this is too big, and then they didn't know, but they looked at me like I was an Amazon directly from Brazil or something. So I'm just saying that the different kinds of outlooks are very interesting to me, but I do feel, getting back to the subject, that by being involved with the arts, our mind opens up. We might see something. In France, there was a wonderful Vietnamese artist who was a woman, and she hired us as dancers, and she explained to us, she said, I guess especially in France, maybe in other countries too, she said, up until first grade, children are free to paint and do whatever they want. They can have the grass can be blue, the sky can be orange, but once they get to first grade, forget it, They're told you can only do the sky this color. Now maybe that was like in France, because they're very like this when it comes to what is correct. But I love the culture very much, so I'm only saying something from my experience. But it all goes hand in hand with the awareness of, later on in life when you have time to think about it and you're not running around in training for dance. Many of these ideas have come to me, and I like to bring that awareness to working with private classes or group classes with children. So it goes kind of together. It's not like you just learn to teach one way. The more different styles you've learned, the more versatile the work can be that you bring to others.
So I have a question now, just a kind of a what if question. If a child comes to you, and I'm sure you do have these children come to you, who want to be dancers, what do you feel is a good foundation?
Oh, you mean what style?
Whatever.
Well,
if somebody has just moved up here to Woodstock or upstate New York, and they have a child who would like to be a dancer, or say they're over in Kingston and they have a child who says that they would like to be a dancer, what is a good way to start that child?
Well, it also depends on age because of the formation. If it's a 4 or 5 year old, there's a different way of working because they're very flexible and soft still. But if it were, let's say, a 6-year-old to 8-year-old, I firmly believe in some ballet training as well as the modern dance, which has a technique also. There are many techniques in modern as well, and then some free expression. But they do need to be properly placed. the placement, the anatomical way that a child or a dancer stands is very important, because the knees and the foot have to match, whether it's parallel or turned out. So I'm very into, correct placement, because if someone is improperly trained, meaning not having the right corrections, then it takes many years to undo that. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but I would encourage both styles. I think that the classical form is so important. I mean, even in jazz or art or music or whatever, because, when you have that foundation, then your body in dance, classically trained in some way, has a foundation that then permits for the greater freedom. So I like to combine that. I'm not, into, we're totally separate. I mean, especially in the New York dance world, it was wonderful for me when I first came back from Paris to see that a lot of famous modern dancers from different companies, were in these ballet classes every morning. And then they'd go to their modern dance rehearsal with Paul Taylor or Martha Graham or whatever, different companies. And in France, it wasn't like that. They looked down on modern, the ballet people were here and the modern people were here. Now maybe they've come together to acknowledge that. But that was my early training in another country. And so I had early training in Panama at the National Conservatory of Ballet, which Margot Fontaine was very much a friend of one of my teachers, and she used to come and visit us. And in those days, we didn't have creative movement or even modern dance, although my mother told me about Isadora Duncan, because she had been brought up in New York. So when I look back on it, I realize how important that early training was, because it gave me very strong feet, and the discipline and all that, which I really loved in those days at the age of 6, stayed with me. And so that's probably why when I teach, I honor those different styles as an underpinning for whatever else you can do. It's not about, well, you're in that division, we don't talk to you. That's how they were in Paris, or else they would say, thank you, Isadora Duncan, for coming to class, as they would hold my leg up to my ear. Or another teacher, which is a funny one because it will be in the book also, it was a certain studio where Zizi Jeanmaire and Roland Petit came to class. They were well known, and they both have recently passed away. But the teacher there looked down at my feet with socks, because I hated ballet shoes by then, but I would wear black socks to, sort of be respectful. And then he would look at my feet and he would say, thank you, Anna Sokolow, for coming to class. And of course, she was a famous pioneer in modern dance, for whom I've named my dance theater. And I realized then that, that must be an honor, because I'm being told that I'm one of these great pioneers that is bestowing upon the ballet world to come to a class. So there was kind of like that attitude, which I picked up. But I personally love all styles of dance, and I think the more the merrier. It's good for a child to have a wide range of different styles, so that then if they go for an audition or to work with the choreographer, they'll have that flexibility of outlook and attitude. And that's all going back to that thing about, your brain is more elastic, literally, in accepting and expressing new ideas. And you don't come in with a set thing, well, we can't do that, and why aren't we wearing pink tutus, because this is a modern dance class. So by encompassing the many wonderful styles and the many wonderful cultures that I respect and enjoy, it's a way to broaden one's outlook, even for your daily work and your daily, chores or meeting people. And that brings up something that I realized recently. I've been thinking a lot that my mother was a well-known photojournalist and writer and journalist, and she would say, if anybody says something, whatever, she would say, well, consider the source. And that's evidently a newspaper term, because people would call up with the story. They would say, and I guess they used to say among them, in the newsroom, consider the source. We have to really find out. And so I like that expression, because I think it also applies to, if someone is having a bad day or something and they're, venting at you or whatever, you have to just step back and not take it personally and consider the source, So I enjoy that idea, which is connected also to this outlook, to having a wide, broad outlook. about different things, and that comes from training in the arts, even if you don't become a professional.
Do you ever give classes to adults?
Yes, I do have classes, and I've been considering, because I myself had a few surgeries on my hips and one knee, and I was thinking today, I have a slight foot fracture, but that was just twisting my foot on the way to the TV station about 2 weeks ago. So I don't want to go into that. But I was thinking as I sat in a chair and did some exercises, I know that people have given chair exercises, and I realize there's a lot you can do sitting on a chair and stretching your leg with no impact on it, or doing side stretches, you know, and isolation movements of the head and shoulders, and you feel better. And so I would like to have a class of that type as well, because I think I, of all people, would be most empathetic, having been through my own recoveries and plowing through and sailing forward in a way that I feel very grateful for. And a lot of it has to do with, you know, the early work, of course, of years of training as a dancer, because for me, a good doctor is one that says, just keep moving. I had to run away from one doctor because he said, don't move, don't teach, don't anything. So I went to the next guy, which I knew I need a second opinion. This is not good for a dancer. No, that's not how we do it. So just recently, a wonderful doctor I went to in Rhinebeck, he said, you know, people don't, he said, other doctors don't understand the elite. I didn't know we were the elite. I was so pleased to hear that. But I was embarrassed too. And he said, no, you have to keep the foot, you know, in this boot, but you can move, but just, you know, be careful. And I said, well, can I do certain exercises lying on the floor and lifting? Oh, yeah, that's fine, you know. So the point is that a good sports medicine outlook is what is needed. But then for those people who have gone through some rehabilitation times, and then they have to really open their minds, and through dance, in whatever way or form, including sitting on a chair, lying on a bed, you know, propping yourself up on 3 pillows, that's fine. That's why it's so interesting that they have now a lot of funding for dancers with disabilities, because they have seen these amazing people who are in wheelchairs, who are just, you know, doing turns and you know, and reaching out to the ones who are ambulatory. It's fascinating to me, because you see how proactive they can be. And for that, I would enjoy doing that type of work for people who might be interested in a special class with, you know, we can call it, I don't want to say special needs, but who have individual different issues. And I think I could have fun with that, because I have all types of different music. I enjoy everything from classical for my classes to guitar music and flamenco, and I play one castanet sometimes to keep the rhythm. I know you're supposed to have 2, but somehow I made that up. It's easy to move and jump up and down and demonstrate with one castanet. So there's a lot of creative work that goes into teaching as well. And each person is different. Each individual has to be considered, and I do that when I meet children. I learn about their personality, and of course they teach me, because they teach me a lot of what they're capable of, which often is very interesting. And they say that in general, you know, that with teaching, that really the teacher learns from the student, and also the students learn from each other. And that's where cooperative learning, which was something I had to keep taking a class in. At the time, I didn't agree when I had to write a paper that they say, you know, cooperative learning is an American whatever style. And then I would disagree completely, because I was into the discipline. But one day during a rehearsal in New York, I had to leave the room. And I said, okay, watch this video and learn your parts. And I listened when I came back in the hallway. I didn't go in right away. And I heard the dancers saying, but my girl did this, and my girl did this. And they were working in a cooperative way. And it was then that I suddenly realized all these courses they kept telling us that we had to take at the Department of Ed. Suddenly, a light flashed. And I realized that here were adult professionals with a lot of experience among them, and they were helping each other out, and they were also taking the initiative. They didn't need me, the director, to tell them what's on the video, because they were using their own eyes and not only learning their parts, but they were telling each other what their part was doing. So I learned a lot in those 5 or 8 minutes that I was eavesdropping outside the door. I learned what that means, and I think it's really true that children learn best when they see each other. So the homeschool children, who especially now don't have the chance to see others, are a little bit at a disadvantage, but when they start going, able to go to groups, they enjoy that because they see their peers, first of all, but they also learn from each other, because even as adults, of course, many times we had very famous people in our ballet class, and you look around and they were very, low-key. You wouldn't even know that was them until you took a second look. And of course, that was a wonderful thing, because, you would watch someone, once Baryshnikov was in back of me, but then he was doing little modern dance things during the ballet class, so that was a different story. But we often learn by seeing someone who's better than we are and who also has a certain quality. And artistry is something that I really believe in cultivating, because the Russian ballet people, believe me, they're par excellence, and they instill tremendous discipline, but they also cultivate the artistry early on, because it's not something that you paste on later. They bring it out, they cultivate it in different ways with imagery and whatever, and then that combined with the tremendously difficult technique and discipline is taught at a very early age, and then it's just a natural aspect. So that's why I like to combine that. Okay, I agree, the American style of education is very avant-garde, and I worked in a French school, for instance, once in New York. I was the only American because they had to show that they had a certified teacher that was from New York, and then they had the Minister of Culture, the Minister of Education in France also had to put their stamp on it. And I worked with 5-year-olds teaching dance and music, and the directors didn't like it because I would let them have all this creative thing to do, and sometimes they had to do painting or drawing. And the French style I learned more at that school than the 5 years I lived in Paris, was that you have to hold your arm and around the child, hold their hand and the pen and make them write. In my idea, I realized then that the American way of upbringing, here, figure out how to put on your shoelaces, I would tell my daughter, or why don't you read that book and tell me what the recipe says, It's not about like, now we hold our pen. And then they would tell me also, which was very funny because this is a cultural thing, I know we're running out of time, but they would say, but mademoiselle, we can tell that you don't know how to write in penmanship, because I had to print everything. They said, of course, I went to college and I know how to print. I just can't read my own writing. So we print. But anyway, so that's part of the whole, differences of culture and outlooks that I've experienced, and which has brought me some new understandings all the time.
What is an ideal age? What is a good young age? If you have a child and you think, gee, I think my little daughter or my little son might be a good dancer, do you start them off at 2 years old, 3 years old?
Well, they do have people who work with them called Mommy and Me classes, but because usually they'll cry if the parent leaves. But I think, for seriously focusing and following a technique, I would say around 6 years old.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because of the development of the child's, ability to feel comfortable and so on, and also the formation of the muscles and the bones and all that. So if it were going to be like in a formal ballet or modern training, I would, but there is creative movement. I did a lot of that, but now I want to focus more on, a certain age group, which I know I would be able to help benefit in that way.
What does somebody say you are a young person and you grew up and you decided that as a child you wanted to be a dancer, and you grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, or Oshkosh, or whatever, some place where there isn't possibly the teachers that you would want. And this child grows up and takes advantage of the training that he or she received. And then, of course, when these children grow up, as soon as they become adults, the thing they want to do is come to New York. So what do they do? How do they become competitive at that age?
Well, New York isn't the only location. We have phenomenal universities now. I wish I were a student again, because one of my alma maters is USC in California, and they have built a major department of dance, which is incredible. They didn't have that when I was there. But there's so many wonderful universities that have even better training than in New York sometimes. Why?
Oh, really?
And some of the great teachers went to the universities because they needed to earn a living and have, you know, a better lifestyle. So that was happening even 15 or 20 years ago. But right now, especially on the West Coast and also, in Boston and all the other places in between, they're producing wonderful dancers. They do come to New York after they've had a degree in dance or related field, and then they want to see how it'll go. But I would say that if the child is of college age and they're serious, to direct them to do that and even have a double major, which is encouraged many times too, so that they have more skills and so on. But New York is not the end-all for jumping right in. The training is all over in these wonderful colleges and universities. I'm so impressed with them. And I think that it's a whole new era where they are attributing the importance of dance as a major, which they didn't do for many decades, until the last 40 or 50 years. So
So now, if you're young and you feel like you're talented, you don't necessarily want to come to New York.
No, not necessarily.
Very, very.
I mean, that's just my opinion.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I think people should know that there are great colleges all over. And also UCLA has a dance department, and they have music and art, and other Midwest colleges are wonderful. University of Michigan and some of the lesser known colleges as well do feature that, and they encourage it. But not only that, they also teach the student to learn about all the different aspects, different careers that are offshoots of the field itself. It doesn't only have to be performing. So they can learn skills such as, dance, writing, or publicity, marketing, as well as being a performer. So they will have a well-rounded aspect of the different aspects that you can actually delve into in that field. So that's why I highly encourage university attendance, even though I know how expensive colleges are these days. But they have a wide range of possibilities. And not only that, they have fantastic video equipment, stage, music. They have all these elements that a small dance company doesn't always have. So that's another plus in the sense of being exposed to, the ability to produce things. And they also encourage them to do their own choreography. So that's why I encourage them.
Now you just brought up another subject. You have this talented person who wants to dance, and then you just talked about choreography, and you talk about yourself. So how important is it to include art and drama as well?
Definitely. I think the best performers have some smattering of those other fields, because then they can be so versatile. The whole key to success, I always say, is working. And you work when you have a lot of various skills, because I think they still have Backstage newspaper and show business, a newspaper where people can look for auditions. Maybe now they're cutting down because so many Broadway shows, for instance, have closed, but they will reopen. And there are always either commercials or possibilities for jobs for dancers. So the more versatile they are and the more open-minded they are, the more they'll work. And working is success.
So what you're telling me is that if someone has a child who is interested in becoming a dancer or shows the ability to become a dancer, that there really are a lot of opportunities out there for these young people. And so for when you have these homeschool children or you have these children in Woodstock, we do have the Colony of the Arts, and they can partake in all of these things to their advantage.
Yes, definitely. But the training has to start early, it's true, because of the development of the muscles and bones and so on, the formation. But often I had to write something about this in my upcoming memoir, The Dented Swan, about the fact that I had a mother come to me in France, and she asked me, she didn't know that her daughter was saving her lunch money to pay for the classes I was teaching. And I was very surprised, to learn that. So she also demanded of me, this French mother, she said, "Will my daughter become a professional?" And I said, "It's not up to me, the teacher. The field is so difficult that only time will tell." And recently we have reconnected, which is wonderful because I remember a lot of little footnotes I tell her about. And she's a solo performer, and she had such a passion for wanting to do that she sacrificed her lunch money. So it wasn't really up to me, the teacher, to determine that. Sooner or later, time will tell whether or not that person has the desire, the passion, the courage, and the fortitude to go through all the ups and downs that the field has waiting for them.
I love that word, courage. I really, that's a beautiful word. I've never, you just don't hear that word very often.
Well, one of my chapters is called The Dented Swan Displays Her Badge of Courage, Red Badge of Courage, because that was the name of the book. And that whole idea of, the courage that we have to have within us to continue in spite of disappointment, disillusion, injuries, annoying criticisms and stuff like that. It takes a really strong personality, and if you didn't have a strong character to begin with, you will develop it if you stay in the field long enough. So that's where courage comes in.
I think Woodstock is very fortunate to have you.
Thank you.
I think that's fabulous. How much time do we have, Miss Ellen?
About 8, 9 minutes.
We have 8 or 9 minutes. What kind of a message would you like to share with the new residents of Woodstock?
Well, I would like to welcome everybody and remind you about the great colony of the arts and the aspects that we want to preserve, and we hope that you will help us to maintain that by attending events, attending the film festivals, our dance festival, and being supportive of the arts will be a great blessing for everybody. And also to remember that this is a country unto itself, and we hope it will continue with the kindness and the courtesy and the wonderful consideration that people like to show each other. And patience is not only a virtue, it is a necessary element.
That's great. I think that's wonderful. When you talk about the colony of the arts and you talk about festivals and things, where is your festival held?
Well, it's located at 1766 Glasgow Turnpike. It's an orange painted building, which is where our theater is, and we plan to do outdoor events as well as indoor when the time is possible to do that. So, as I said, we enjoyed being able to present an outdoor event where people felt comfortable and, distance, and we will be preparing for that again for the month of June, because I think the outdoors are more comfortable, in the summer.
So you're going to start in February.
Yes.
And you'll work in Glasgow Turnpike, and you'll work in the outdoors and in the indoors, and then you'll finally have this outdoor festival.
Yes, the classes will be indoors for, during these winter days, but the plan for the event will be outside, and I hope that people will stay tuned and attend, because our ticket prices are very reasonable, and we are creating and doing our work for you, the public. The dancers are not performing for themselves. They are dancing for the audience and hoping to reach out through their creative expression to other people who will hopefully be lifted up especially during these times. My choreography is often very upbeat and colorful, and I like to be able to channel the message of hope and love and joy through the art of dance.
You know, that's an interesting thing, because one of the things that I've learned about Woodstock is that things ripple out. You know, they ripple out. And of course now in the last couple of years we have so many new families. And when you talk about having a festival and you have these children that are taking the classes and then they're going to have their dance festival, the grandparents and relatives are going to come from all over the place because these are new families, and they're very excited about being in the Woodstock school district. Even years ago, when you and I first came here, there were children that came from all over the United States and lived with grandparents or whatever and came to school in the Woodstock area. So now we're going to have this festival, and we've got some hotel rooms now, and some B&B rooms so that they can come and stay and see their grandchildren.
Yeah,
That's lovely. I know that and that brings back memories for me, because I have a granddaughter who was in a drama group in Southern California, and I used to fly out and go to see her. You know, she was this big, and I would go and see her acting. So this is important.
Yeah,
this is very important for the training of the child and the development of the family, and for people to see where their families are now living.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to go out a long way.
Well, I hope so, and I appreciate your encouragement, because sometimes we're working in a cocoon and we don't always think about the aspects of what this can snowball into. Pardon the expression.
Oh, listen, that was one of the first things I learned, is that we do have the ripples. And in Woodstock, they've got roller skates. Listen, we've only have a couple of 3 minutes left. What do we have? Can you give us another contact information and tell us?
Yes. Okay, so the Woodstock Diamond Socolo Dance Theater can be reached at reviewdancing@yahoo.com or 845-679-7757, and I'll be happy to call you back and give you any information about upcoming classes and the audition plan for children coming up right now in February. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, Miss Ellen. This was great, and I love this. Oh, the set is beautiful.
We're in the tropics today, in an early January day, when snow is all around and ice. I thought it would be fun to have a little tropical flavor.
It was a very, very good decision, and thank you very much, Miss Ellen.
Thank you.
Thank you.